read the bill. Basically, point number one is, could you even enforce a ban, right? How do you enforce like banning an app full stop, through the web, through mobile, how do you do that? Well, actually the bill doesn't ban TikTok. It bans anybody who would distribute TikTok. So in other words, they wouldn't go after ByteDance, the parent company of TikTok.
Apple and Google.
They would actually go after Apple and Google and Oracle and Verizon and AT&T and anybody who distributes it. The fascinating thing here is that it's $5,000 per user per offense.
Ouch.
So yeah, so if there's 100 million current users in the U.S., so that's a $500 billion potential fine that could be, which is just ridiculous. That's just silly. So it's just the other thing in there and nobody's talking about this on the mainstream media is the other big part of this bill is the data. So they say, regardless of what happens, if TikTok sells itself or doesn't sell itself, ByteDance or whoever owns it has to give users access to an export of every single bit of data they have about them. The username, the images, the text, the videos, anything they've uploaded, anything they've gotten, they have to be able to access with that. And the penalty for that is $500 per user. So that's a really interesting thing for us to follow if this thing even gets any kind of movement. Who would buy it? The fascinating thing to me is the bill doesn't actually, there's Steve Mnuchin is maybe going to put together investors to buy. People have said Microsoft might buy it, Google might buy it, Apple might buy it. But the actual thing doesn't specify. It only specifies that it can't be controlled by one of the 5, uncool sort of foreign adversary countries, which is China, and that includes Hong Kong, Cuba, Iran, North Korea, and Russia. So, my vote is that Ryan Reynolds, our beloved, dreamy, wonderful marketer, he can come in from Canada and buy TikTok. That's what I'm voting for. I'm going to have Ryan Reynolds come in and buy TikTok. I'm looking for you, Ryan, out there to actually get TikTok bought. Anyway,
at it. Yeah.
They have time. That's the other thing that's in there. It's 6 months. So even if it banned tomorrow, they would have 6 months to find a buyer before it would actually be banned. And even if it's not found a buyer within 6 months, they can come back anytime. In other words, so Ryan Reynolds could come back after 12 months and go, I'm going to buy TikTok, and then all would be well again. So they've got plenty of time to let this play out. And then it's fascinating. They actually name ByteDance by name in the bill. Look, there's no other there's no other viral video platforms from North Korea or Russia right now that are burning up the charts. So, it was pretty much always going to be about TikTok, but they actually name ByteDance and TikTok by name, but then they actually call out an exception, and they call out an exception for platforms that provide user reviews, product reviews, or travel information. And I kept trying to figure out who the hell was that written for? Like it's too oddly specific for them not to have somebody in mind with that. Don't know who it is. Can't figure it out. And so finally, I'll just mention this, which is with regard to the conspiracy theories that are going around. Like, but ByteDance can't. So even if it wanted to sell, it can't, because they're citing this Chinese export law that basically is called the Catalog of Technology, which to me sounds like a Harry Potter novel. But basically, it's this catalog of technology that cannot be exported from China. It includes things like, LiDAR and, crop science and, all those kind of social media algorithms are not part of it, to be clear. And by the way, ByteDance is not owned by the Chinese government. It is owned by some Chinese founders, some international investors. 7,000 American employees also have ownership of the company. So the Chinese government has 1%, what's called the golden share in China, which gives them a board seat, basically. So yeah, they have some influence. Yes, it probably does need their permission in order to sell the company, but it's not prohibited by Chinese law. And it's certainly not prohibited by some of their export tariffs or anything like that. So is it likely to be sold? No, I can't. After reading this, I'm like, nope. There's this, because the other thing is this bill's going nowhere. Certainly as written, this bill's going nowhere. Senate's not going to pick it up. Senate's, if they do, they'll completely rewrite it into something different. Yep. Certainly not going to happen before the U.S. National elections. So it's going to be punted down the road for the next president to deal with. And I would doubt that. I would forecast some sort of deal happening where they, make it even more stringent with Oracle or do something with their Texas project or whatever it is. We can all just take a big deep breath about TikTok. It's not going anywhere in the near term.